Alright guys, welcome to our most important video yet. Okay, this is the review, aka the study guide for the Module 2 test. Okay, so if you can do this test with no problem, or the study guide, you can do the test perfectly. Okay, so part 1, it says match each trigonometric function. That just means SOHCAHTOA. With its equivalent ratio. Ratio means fraction. Okay. It is possible to choose a ratio more than once. That's super important. Okay. And it's possible that we will not use any at all. And just so you know, the picture is not to scale. So sine of C is the first one. So we go to C. Okay. So this is our reference angle for C. So if I'm using angle C, I go right across, and that is opposite. Okay. 10 is always the hypotenuse because it's across from the 90-degree angle. And lastly, if I'm using C as a reference angle, 8 is the adjacent one. It's next to it. All right, so sine we know is opposite over hypotenuse. So I go to sine of C, so I go to C, I do opposite, so that's 6, and hypotenuse is 10. So that's 6 over 10, and I reduce it by 2 to be 3 over 5. Okay. So that is answer choice E. All right, now they want to know sine of T, which is the other angle. So sine of T, okay, sine is opposite, so in this case, for the blue angle here, this is opposite and this is adjacent. This one is always the hypotenuse. Okay. So for sine of T, opposite over hypotenuse is going to be 8 over 10. Reduce it, that's 4 over 5, which is answer choice E. We're back to angle C. Okay, so we're using angle C as a reference angle, and we said that 8 is adjacent and 10 is the hypotenuse. So 8 over 10, which is 4 over 5. And remember, I said that you're allowed to use something more than once, and sine of one is the same as the cosine of the other. So your answer is E again. Back to T. So T is our reference angle. We want cosine. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So for T, remember we've written in blue here. So 6 is adjacent to D, and adjacent is 6, hypotenuse is 10. So 6 over 10, which reduces to 3/5, which is D again. So yes, you're allowed to use it more than once. Back to C, we want tangent. And from SOHCAHTOA, tangent is opposite over adjacent. So C, opposite is 6, adjacent is 8. And that reduces to 3 over 4, which is answer choice B. And lastly, we're doing tangent of T. Tangent is opposite over adjacent, so opposite of T is 8, and adjacent to T is 6, which is 4 over 3. And you might remember that these are reciprocals of each other. All right, so for part 2, they give you that tangent of A is 20 over 15. Remember, tangent equals opposite over adjacent. So, and we're talking about angle A. So I go to angle A. Opposite is 20. Adjacent is 15. Okay. So a natural question to ask right here is, what is this one? Since it's a right triangle and we know two sides, we can find the third by using the Pythagorean theorem, or a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And then you're allowed to use your calculator if you want to. So make sure, let's get all this out of here. that you are not making any silly errors when you could have used your calculator. Okay, and if you don't know the square root of 625, you can put in your calculator and you get 25. Right. Now you have all the sides, you can start answering the questions. So A, B, that's A, B is 25. So that's answer choice C. And this one you don't use any of them more than once. B, C is 20, so that's answer choice B. And A, C is 15, so that's answer choice F. All right, so when you think angles, think inverse. So I know that tangent of A is 20 over 15. So tangent of A equals 20 over 15. We want to know what A is, so we need to get rid of tangent. So I do the inverse, because the inverse cancels out the tangent. And what you do to one side, you do to the other. So 15. These cancel, so you get A equals the inverse tangent of 20 over 15. So you do second tangent, so you have inverse tangent of 20 over 15. You get 53.1, which when we round is E. Now you can do that math again, or you just know that a triangle is 180 degrees. Okay. I already used up 90 here. So A plus B has to make up the other 90. So if A is 53, A is 53. Then B is 90 minus 53, which is 37. Answer choice A. And lastly, angle C is 90 degrees. Please, please, please do not miss that problem. Or I will lose my mind on you, like I did today. All right, 13. Triangle XYZ is isosceles right triangle, which means you have a 45, 45, 90. And the pattern for a 45, 45, 90 is n, n, n root 2. So to get from here to here, you just multiply by root 2. So to get backward, you divide by root 2. So to figure out what these are, you just do 8 divided by root 2. And then we rationalize by multiplying by root 2 over root 2. So it's 8 root 2 over square root of 4, which is 4 root 2. And because it's isosceles, both of these are the same. But that's not what the question was asking. The question wants to know what is cosine of z. Remember, from SOHCAHTOA, cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So adjacent is 4 root 2. So right next to z. And 8 is your hypotenuse. Okay, hypotenuse. So this reduces to 1 and a 2. So it's square root of 2 over 2. Okay. And by exact answer, that means I don't want to plug it into a calculator. I don't want to round. I just want the answer, okay, exactly. All right. Number 14, okay, Ryan is 6 feet tall. So this is Ryan right here. He's 6 feet tall. Okay. At a certain time of day, he casts this 10-foot long shadow right here. At the same time, the flagpole, which is, I don't know how long, casts an 85-foot shadow. Okay. And if you make triangles out of that, we have 2 triangles happening, and they want to know the height of the flagpole. So we are going to set up a proportion. So what you're going to do is take 2 sides of the same triangle. So so 6 over 10. And then you find their matching pieces of the big triangle, which 6 matches up with x, and 10 matches up with 85. If you want to make your life easier, you can reduce. You do not have to. I'm going to. So that becomes 3 over 5 equals x over 85. Then cross multiply. So I get 5x equals 3 times 85, which is 255. Divide by 5, divide by 5, x equals 51 feet. Which should make sense because that flagpole is going to be a lot bigger than Ryan. Alright, so this is another proportions problem. Okay, and we're going to set it up the same way. So remember, always use 2 sides of the same triangle. So we're going to start with this little triangle here. So the first one starts at 2 and x minus 5. All right, and then you match it up with the big triangle. So the big triangle is all of this. So if this is 2 and this is 1, it becomes 3, because 2 plus 1 is 3. Okay, and this one, you add them as well. So you get 2 plus x minus 5, which you're going to want to rewrite by combining like terms as x minus 3, because negative 5 plus 2 is negative 3. All right, then we cross multiply. The hardest part here is making sure that you cross multiply correctly. So I have 2 times x minus 3 equals 3 times x minus 5. From there, we distribute. So I get 2x minus 6 equals 3x minus 15. Subtract the 2x. Okay, from there it's just algebra. So I get x, add 15. I get 9. So x is 9. Alright. And the last problem here, we've got ABC is an isosceles triangle, which should make sense because this is 13, that's 13. This is not 13, so it's not equilateral, it's just isosceles. So Bill and Joel, shout out to Gomes and McCoy, are finding the measure of altitude AD. So they're talking about this right here. They want to know how long it is. They want to know who's correct and who's incorrect and to explain your reasoning. So Bill went through and he said, all right, so a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And he said, okay, cool, this is a, because it's not the hypotenuse. So he did 10 squared plus x squared, which this will be x, equals 13 squared. And he did the math and he got 8.3. Joel did 5 squared plus x squared equals 13 squared. And he's actually right. So it's Joel. Here's why. This whole thing is 10, but you can only use right triangles to do Pythagorean theorem. Okay? So if this is an altitude and it comes straight down, this is 5 and this is 5. So then he was able to do 5 squared plus x squared equals 13 squared, because 13 is the hypotenuse in that case. Okay? So you can only use the Pythagorean theorem. Okay, spelling does not count, but I need to know what you're talking about. Theorem on right triangles. Triangles. You must cut it in half. So the answer is x equals 12. And that's a 5, 12, 13 right triangle. And if you know how to do every single problem on here, you'll be super successful on the Module 2 test. It's been real. Like and subscribe. Good luck on your test. I'm out.